I want to continue with this. I haven't put the name on the other tape video. It just went up. My time was up on it. But maybe you can tell by this. It'll be video 2. And today is what? The 13th, I believe, of September. This is my dad, Edward the Eighth, who never married Wallace Simpson. She married a double. This is Hustler Magazine, where I ran the political campaign, and I found out about my kidnapping in late 1983. Mr. Flint says here that I knew who was responsible for his shooting. So, in Lawrenceville, Georgia, this is the family. This is me in 41. I was kidnapped in, I was kidnapped in 41, and this is in 43. That family did not look dressed up. They didn't have cars. They didn't have a camera like this. Somebody went out and sent it, I suppose, to my family back in England. This is Lina Dempsey, mother of the twins. They were born out of wedlock, her twins. She was a psychopath. I was later told by Kenneth Don Reagan, and he suffered. He went to bat for me, and he was a doctor. Anyway, I won't get into that. He told me that she was a psychopath, John was a psychopath, and the doctor that was sued down there, Victor Gonzalez, was a psychopath. He said, I've never seen someone that was surrounded by 3 psychopaths in my career or life. He said it's quite unusual. That and have so much power over you. So they just were destroying me. This is me here. Okay, this is my uncle, 39, George, illegal, father of Elizabeth, illegal. And because of this addendum my father had, it was a plot to take him down with character assassination. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe. Always. They never divorced. This was a total plot and takedown by the Illuminati, the Kennedys, etc., that helped kidnap me. Rockefeller's Rothschild, my own uncle. Elizabeth, because of the addendum, it made me the Queen of England the day I was born. And my father and mother and me moved back into Buckingham Palace and coexisted. But then they kidnapped me. Elizabeth was 15 years old. She would remember my mom. She would remember my dad. She would remember the double and all that being talked about. So she's kept quiet. She's gone right through Virginia back in a few years ago during the Virginia Tech shooting. And that was a program shooting, and I was trying to tell about it. I lived up on top of the Full Heart Knob, being run around and starved and frozen on the Appalachian Trail. And everybody loved her, and I hope the world gets to see how I've been treated. So now I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to go back to Henry Kissinger tried to have me lobotomized, and that was 72. It was on the Watergate tapes, the deletion of the Watergate tapes. Then April Fool Day of 80, they put antifreeze in me. It was after I'd done the book, got the letter from the FBI, June the 23rd, 79. And I had gone out to Texas because I was going to try to get a job, and if I did, I was going to move the boys and myself out there to get us away from that, hopefully. Because I thought all this was the book. I didn't know about my kidnapping until 83. John's sister Laura Childers, she now lives outside Austin, Texas. But I had called her, and John had, and I was supposed to go out there and stay for a week or maybe 2 and see if she could help me. She's CPA. See if she could help me get a job, and I would stay with her during that time, a couple of weeks. And if I got a job, I was going to move out there. I got out there, and I had checked with Laura Childers Klein before I left, and it was okay. I got out there at just outside Dallas, and lo and behold, I called her, and I had no money. I had the car and no money, that I'm there, and she then had suddenly, while my driving out there, ever how long that took, a day or a day and a half, had decided not and didn't inform me that I couldn't come. So I had to turn around and go back, and my apartment was gone. The manager, who knew totally this was my ex-husband, it was my apartment, my credit, everything, lease. My husband didn't come back, and I told her then, when he moved in, it was to protect us. And she told me, she knew I had a letter from the FBI, that her uncle was the one in charge of the Patty Hearst kidnapping. Well, the Hearsts were in on my kidnapping. They're part of the Illuminati, on Hearst papers and all that castle. So anyway, she knew totally. When I got back, I had no apartment. She had allowed my ex-husband to take my deposit, take my furniture out, and he had an apartment a couple of doors down, the same apartment complex, in his name. I had no key. I had the antifreeze put in me. My children are victims in this. God help it be told, please. I went to the emergency room, and that's another story. The doctors that met me there weren't even supposed to be on staff. So it was, I've tried to put this up, some of the doctors involved, but this is 1980. I'm leaving out a lot of this. It's a horror story. I had antifreeze in me. Went for a tox screen, and all this happened. Now, I'm across the state line, Lina Dempsey, this woman of the twins, that they took and put me there and told me I had to call her mother, and I always told her she wasn't my mother, even though she beat me and everything. So somewhere I knew. But anyway, I'm across the state line in the condition I'm in. I didn't see my kids but a couple of times. I was afraid to tell them of the antifreeze being put in because John had them. I did not know he had remarried. I don't know the date he remarried, and therein I'm going to stop this in a minute. And I don't know that any of putting this up. I can't get an attorney or anything. They're afraid of it. Whether I get to go home back to England or whatever happens to me, I can hardly live now. Kept penniless and homeless. But Lina Dempsey, I was with her, so she's tried to play the card that and use the mental health system. Jack Hartsfield was an FBI agent, and he was undercover for the Huntsville Times paper. He later went out to the New Mexican News in '84, and he knew Larry Flint, by the way. And he was in Santa Fe, next door to my Aunt Georgia O'Keeffe's place, Ghost Ranch. So he saved my life. Let me say that. Jack did. Lina Dempsey, I'd worked for Fred Simpson, the district attorney. In the condition I was in, the Watergate tapes were played, and I was told not to talk about any of this. Well, I could hardly work. I mean, I did good to be able to even work there. So I went to work for Doyle Duke. They were CIA, but I remember, and I hope I haven't gotten her, I won't say her name, but she said to me when I worked there, that was the next job I had after the DA, so that would have been early '81, I believe. She said, she worked for the CIA, and Doyle Duke did, and this was Golden Triangle, but it was a publishing, but there's clues in the name. This was like Simpson, just like, well, John Lennon was shot when I worked for Fred Simpson, and the shooter was programmed Mark David Chapman. Mark's my son's name. David's my dad's name, Edward, but it's David they call him, and C for Chapman. Later here in Roanoke, a few years ago, they found where Mark David Chapman had lived here on 9th Street. They found it in the Yellow Pages or phone book and published it in the paper here, Roanoke paper. And they made no connection to me, but I mean, any fool would know why did they put it like that. But anyway, in all this, I'm trying to get back to Lina Dempsey had me in the car. She's got me. My ex-husband, I'm finding out, is paying her to keep me over here. Now then, I'm not going to mention him. I don't want to get him in trouble, but or whatever. But anyway, nobody tried to help me. I'm working Fred Simpson, and then I work for Doyle Duke. And during the time I worked for Doyle Duke, the Wayne Williams murders were black murders in Atlanta were involved in all this. And I called her, and I was afraid she wouldn't believe me, Mary Welcome. She said, "Oh, I do," but I was put right through to her. She was going to have an attorney come over and take a deposition. Lina Dempsey went down before that happened, and she went to a former judge, McCoy. He was retired. Now, I want to get this to you. My divorce was finalized October of 73, leaving me anything, John, which is unusual. He dictated it and signed it, but then look what happened to my attorney, Ruff. That the life insurance policy, anything he should have or ever have, would be heft with me. So at any time, I tried to get it when I got without money and couldn't get a job. I tried to get it enforced. Nobody would touch it. Now, Lina Dempsey, the mother of these twins that did this to me, that I had to call, was supposed to call mother, who abused me beyond anybody's belief. She stopped in the middle of the, next to the courthouse, and McCoy, Judge McCoy, retired, was there. She stopped traffic. She said, he was standing at the window, and she says, "I want to introduce you to my daughter." So I hadn't found out about, in 83 is when I found out about my kidnapping, after I was out at Flint's. So now and then I pay my rent, and I don't have a job at this time, and Golden Triangle shut down. I don't have a job at this time, and I'm having trouble coming up paying the rent at Warren House, which is a clue to the Warren Commission and the Kennedy. And the Kennedys helped kidnap me and do all this to me and mine. So I went out, and I come up. I walked in the hot sun in the condition. You don't get over having antifreeze put in. You usually go in a coma and die. So it was a hell on wheels. And by the way, Two Connected, it's been on TV, HLN program. There was two associated with Forsyth County. That's the doctor, if you go back in all this, Dr. Forsyth, that put the chip in the head of a corporation, and I started writing about it, where you can remote control. He was cardiovascular. They've done stuff at this high level, but one of the people was connected, the same woman put antifreeze in him. She married him, and he was associated with the rescue or something. Then the other one was from Cobb County, where they did this to me, Marietta, and nobody's touched it. Well, God, and the same woman was married to him. He was in law enforcement. So this was on TV, antifreeze. That's unusual, too, after they did it to me there. Now then, I want to get back to this if I can. There was always this divorce that would have given me money. If you could disregard the crimes that were being committed against me, my apartment taken, the antifreeze put in me, it was all there. Nobody would touch it except to kill me. I had just paid a month's rent. I guess that was November of 81? Yeah. I paid the rent. Walked out of Warren House Apartments, and the cops were sitting there. And I had, innocent me, trusting, I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Yes, we're looking for Peggy Childers." And I said, "Well, that would be me. That's the name I have to use." He handcuffed me, and he took me down and said Lina had taken out a warrant that I was unable to take care of myself and pay my rent. I just paid it on time, the first of the month, in November. I was locked up, and I knew they were going to kill me this time. She wanted it shut up because if my book had gotten published or any of this had gone before court, she would have been found out that that's not my name, that she'd killed her twins. So she was trying to have me killed. She hated me all my life. So Jack Hartsfield came down there. I was locked up for a month. When I got out, I had no home. Jack and Susan Boda took care of me during that time for a little while at Christmas. Susan Boda had been a friend of Jack's, and she had been in sociology at the University of Alabama, their Extension Center in Huntsville. Later, there were 3 or 4 professors killed, and I've forgotten the woman's name. And Miller, that I worked with at the DA's office, he remembered me when I called him. He was a nice man. Nobody's going to touch it and take it before court. They were mind control murders. The woman was a former policeman, I believe, from Boston, and she was, I can't remember it now. I'd have to go back. It's been, I think this happened in '09. I'm not sure. But there were like 3 or 4 professors gunned down by her. And that's where Susan, so you get into, then Susan moves to LA with where Jack and his wife are, and Larry Flint. And I don't think she knew Larry Flint, but her son or something was shot down. He was a cop out there. Anyway, it gets into this hideous nightmare. And I guess the point I wanted to make too here is, all along, if I had no other money, I should have gotten alimony to keep me off the street, and I begged for it. I was on the street. I'm going to say this. My children are so innocent and beaten in this themselves, and I don't even know where they are. But when I went back to Atlanta, I didn't have a place to stay. The job had ended, and I had nothing. And there was no shelters or anywhere. I found myself homeless, totally homeless. I went on the bus, had enough for a ticket, and I went on the bus, and the bus driver he talked to me, and he took me to the Barclay and paid my rent hotel for a couple of nights. I called R.J. Reynolds, and Terry was the name of the guy there. And I told him who I am. I'd talked to him years before. And I told him I wanted John's number. Well, he wouldn't give it to me. Instead, John and my son Scott showed up at the Barclay. John came in and he said, if you don't shut up and not try getting any alimony from me, or I'm going to do the same thing to you that Lina Dempsey did. And that was lock me up in the mental and call me crazy. Total lie, using the mental health system. So I guess what I did, I stayed with the U.S. Marshal Carnwright out there. I called him. Mary Welcome, the trial had started. I never heard from her again. So anyway, Carnwright and Marietta was U.S. Marshal. His name was Marshal Carnwright, and everybody thought that was his first name. He's U.S. Marshal. I stayed there for a few nights, and he bought me a ticket back to Huntsville. When I got there, well, that's a disaster. I'm back, and I have nowhere to stay. I did have a job offer for Computer Science Corporation, and a woman there at Warren House let me stay with her till I drew my first check. I worked there for a while, and then it ends up, and I'm leaving all this out, the talk screen that I had originally, April Fool of 80, gone to at the hospital there where they did all this to me. It had finally been done after Dempsey had illegally taken me across the state line, and they're trying to use crazy card on me. And God help me if I'd known my real name. I didn't at the time, or at least I didn't know it where I could tell it. I didn't know it. But anyway, I'm trying to keep this in line here. She took me across the state line, me begging to go back to what John had stolen. My apartment had been allowed, that was illegal. My bank account didn't have much in it. So this is going out. So